record again. Here we go, we are back. Tell me what you were saying.
What I was saying essentially, every single person has their own skills, attributes, qualities that other people do not have. And it doesn't matter how famous somebody is or how wealthy they are or how successful they are, there is still stuff that they cannot do. And they are still, every single person in the planet is learning, growing, making mistakes, finding out who they are. So seeing everybody as next to you is healthier than seeing people above you. But I do recognize that getting that validation from these people, actually, what it did for you was it helped you see your own magic and power, and really kind of, it was like a mirror thing for you. It helped you really see yourself in a much clearer way. That's basically what was my point.
Yeah, I was basically like, well, Robert Holden place make up my bum. So I'm just not going to write to her and just hope that she goes away and stops emailing me. But this is the thing, right? Is that the book is that. The book isn't like, okay, it is about my life and it is about my experience and it is my memoir, but it's not that. It's not like, oh, look at me, look at all these amazing things I've done. No. How wonderful. It's about you, and it's about the questions that you have and the the thing that goes on behind it. And like I said, this kind of image maybe that people have of somebody who does this work, and actually really what goes on behind it, so that you can understand that you are a mystic in training, or that we're training for something, we're moving towards something. And everyone that read it has said the same thing, that they see themselves in the book, that it's not separate. It's not like, oh, well, she did that and isn't that wonderful for her. It's like, this could happen to me. Not even this could happen to me, something could happen to me too.
Exactly. I mean, I've read the book, having been your coach and your editor, I've read the book probably more times than anybody has or ever will, aside from yourself. So, but what I will say is that, and I swear this is absolutely the God's truth, every single time I've read it, I've got something different out of it, depending on where I am in that moment. And it really it gives you like new perspectives. It really shifts things in your brain to see things differently. And it gives you some great tools to work with. I was like, oh, I'm so doing that. That's brilliant, right? And so there's a wonderful quote that I say to my children from Roald Dahl, which those who don't believe in the magic of life will never find it. And I almost feel like your book is an extension of that, because what you're showing us is the magic. You're showing us the power. You're showing us the possibilities, that, our lives are much more expansive and broader than we may realize. And it's like an invitation, really. That's what it is. It's permission and it's invitation to more. So it's beautiful. And like I say, I'm just excited.
And I'm excited. And I want to say this as well, because I've seen that there's been a couple of questions come up on the Facebook Live. And one of them was, well, when do we find it? At what point do we get an editor? And I want to say this, like for me, you've been more than an editor, or what I considered an editor, or someone who takes the book at the end and just goes, oh, well, I'm not. So maybe you can just tell everyone like what it is that you do and what the process is that you'd recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So every single person is so personalized. I've had people that have come to me pretty much fully formed on the first draft. I've had people that come to me with like, I want to write a book, but I have no idea what I want to write about. Like, fine, let's figure it out together. So my thing is that I hold space. It really is coaching until we get to the editing part, which is only a part of the program. It's coaching for you to work through this journey of crafting this first draft. Because after the first draft, it's a whole different thing. But the first draft, it is holding space. It is talking you through what will come up. So you may find that you're triggered. You may find that there's imposter syndrome. You may find that, there's writer's block, which isn't a thing, by the way. I really don't believe writer's block is a thing. You're just massively triggered in that space. So we have to kind of go, well, what's going on here? What's the problem? Let's talk it through, right? And then there's like talking about ideas. You and I had lots of discussions about can I talk about this? Is it okay? Shall we? And like, and having those conversations also sparks other ideas.
Yeah.
Going, oh, that's good. I can include that. I can go into this space. So it's having a creative person to bounce off. It's having somebody else who come into the space with a similar intention, who it becomes like, although it's your book and it's your work, for a while there, it's almost a collaborative process, because both of us are working through it together.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is. It's, and like I say, something magic happens in that space. Something powerful can happen when you're working with somebody else, because writing, although it's beautiful, is very solitary and very lonely. And when you've got nobody accountability or nobody to talk things through, you can get really in your head about it.
Right. And I think for me, that's what helped. You know, I'd met you because you'd worked with a few people I know.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I want to do this. I've never done this before. I had a confidence that I'd be able to write, because I quite enjoy writing as far as Facebook posts go, to be fair. It's about as far as I've got, and a few workbooks for my programs. But I just didn't know. I just didn't know what the process was. I didn't know how to do it. And I remember the first call, which was just, you know, you giving me a few tips. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. Like, I remember leaving and going, well, okay, well, I can do that even with what I know now. And having that accountability, and it was kind of all around me. Like, you were very much like, well, what do you want? And I was like, well, can I just send you what I've done as I've done it? And you were like, yeah, that's cool. So every week or 2 or 3, I'd be like, oh, I've done this. And you're like, wow, you've done like another 10,000 words. Like, how have you done that? I'm like, I don't know. Like, and like, there was something there. I did have a secret weapon, by the way. But there was something there about having that accountability, having that like reassurance that when you'd read it and I'd be like, okay, what do you think? And you're like, yeah, this is great, and like, you know, all of this. And then when that shift happened about a third of the way through it, there was this real shift, and then I could sense in you there was kind of more excitement going on and all of this. So if I was saying to anyone with my vast experience of writing one book, what to do, I would say to have someone like Katie to, the advantage of Katie, by the way, is that she's pretty psychic as well. What's that in my eye?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And to write a spiritual book, I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, I'm bigging myself up because I'm British and I'm humble, but I will say that having a book coach, if you're writing a spiritual book, it makes real sense to me to have a spiritual book editor or book coach. Right. You don't have to explain what you're talking about. Like, I'm there with you. I understand what you're talking about. It's a shorthand, so it makes life a lot easier. Right. We had some very interesting conversations that, you know, the stuff about that isn't even in the book. So it's just like I don't know. It's an easier connection, you know.
Right. So if you know, yes, you can just get somebody to read it after. And I work with other people. I work with friends, avid readers, who I was like, okay, I want your opinion. And the people I work with were also very much on different parts of the path. Someone who was like not into any of the spiritual stuff, really brand new to it, but has an interest. Someone who's quite, you know, knows a little bit, but you know, it's not really her field. Someone who is like way into it, has done it for like forever, and is really, so I kind of had these different viewpoints and brought that all together. And for me, that was helpful. I'm not sure everybody would want to do that. But yeah, I would suggest to anyone, or Fiona who asked the question, that if you're thinking of writing it or you've started it, to reach out to someone and get that accountability. That you know, you used to send me little documents as well about, you know, things to think about, and that was helpful as well. So yeah, I'm glad I did it how I did, because otherwise I might have just not ever finished it. I did see there was another question in there about how do you make the sand castles turn into how do you make the sand buckets turn into sand castles, I think she said.
That's a beautiful question, by the way. Thank you for following my analogy with the question. and I know it sounds kind of a get out, it's not. Every book is different, right? And so I have, the books that we have published thus far, there's been a children's book, there's been some memoirs, there's been some self-help. I've done 2 novels. There is a really different vibe, and it's everything is great. How do you turn a sand bucket into a sandcastle? So editing hat, as we call it, is I am able to read it in the sense of, does this make sense first and foremost, as in terms of structure? Does this actually follow a narrative? Even if it's nonfiction, does it follow a narrative pathway? Does it make sense? One of the great things I found is on Word, which I use, is that you can get the computer to read out loud for you. And so because when you're reading it on the screen, you almost start to read what you think is there rather than what's actually there. So that can be helpful. 2 is obviously the basics of, spelling, punctuation and grammar. Is everything where it should be? But thirdly, is it actually enjoyable? Because you can have the first 2 and it can be the most dry and boring book you've ever read in your life. And trust me, I've been a bookworm since I could learn how to read. I have read some dirge in my time. And just because it's crafted well doesn't mean it's enjoyable. So it's really important that all those 3 boxes are ticked. And it is a process. You have to kind of take it very slowly. You literally do have to go sentence by sentence. And try and read the words that are there, and really think about not just you as the editor, but you as the reader, as somebody who's fresh looking at this work. How would they react to it? How would they respond to it? So it is a bit of a process, and it can take some time, but it helps to each step you're crafting that sandcastle.
Yeah, but it starts with the sand. You can't do it with a bucket of water. You need to have the sand.
No, exactly.
I get that.
I think the other important thing to say, the other important thing to say is that there are really no rules about a book. And then, if you go and look online, if you Google how to write a book, you get loads of websites come up, and it's people's advice, but it is just advice. For me, I'm like, it's your book. Do what you want. Literally, if you want to put pictures, photographs, diagrams, color, do you. It's your space, your creative space. There are no rules. Make it yours. Make it something that is unique and personable to you, whatever that looks like, and have fun with it. It is supposed to be a fun activity. It's not supposed to be all dirge and it's not school. This isn't homework. Do you know what I mean? Right.
And I remember saying to you, this was back then in October, November, whenever it was, I was like, I have enjoyed writing every single word of this book. I enjoyed every minute of writing that book, even the bits that were hard, and I was like, oh my God. And then and not so much the writing of it, but then the way that the universe kept showing up with all these things for me. And and there was a moment as well where some there was some pretty crappy things going on in my life as well at that point that I was also writing about, and I was like, oh my God, why is it happening now? But it's all good. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed writing and exploring and finding the words. And I remember there were so many times messaging you going, well, what should the font be? And you kept going to me, well, you can do what you want. And I'm like, well, I've read that it should be 1.5 space and it should be this point. And you were like, you can literally do what you want. And I'm like, well, I don't know, because this is what I've read, because my Virgo is going, Vanessa, you need to do it perfect. And so I did it how I was told to do it by some website.com, right? And website.com, when I got my book, and you warned me, but you never said I told you so, even though I gave you 4.
No, I thought it. I didn't say it. I was very good.
I got the book, and it was really big. And I'm like, that's really big.
It's literally, you could have used it as a doorstop. It was massive.
It did look good though.
I was like, this.
I was like, look at my book. Although I'm reading a book at the moment called Shantaram, which is 960 pages, and it's small print. It's a good book. It's a really good book. So actually I've been used to holding that in my hand, so mine didn't look quite as bad, but the font was huge. So luckily I've changed it, which also has meant that I can bring the price down, and, and ecologically it's lighter and less paper and all the things. So the new sample arrived today and yesterday, and it looks great with the new font. It's still really readable, but anyway, I digress. And I was like, what can I do, and can I put this font there, and can I do this? And you're like, do what you want. So I'm like, I'm going to get creative. So I did. My Leo was like, woo, let's do all this. And it looks really good. The inside of the book looks great with those little kind of touches that I put in there. But it's really clean and really simple, and and I think you can do what you want, and really you want to hold that book in your hands and know that it's an expression of you, and not that you just tick some boxes. And that's what I did with mine. I have not read any books that are like my book. Which is great. So I didn't try and emulate anything. It's got ideas that I've explored through other people's lessons and all of this stuff, of course, but I've not read anything. I don't know what I'd compare it to.
No, I don't actually. I mean, it's got similarities to some other stuff that I've read, but I wouldn't say it's very unique in and of itself in the same time. Yes, it's got, like I say, bits and bobs, but ultimately it's very personable to you. It is the expression of who you are, which is ultimately what you're aiming for. And what's really good news, Melissa, is that your first book is always your worst book. And this is like, if this is your baseline, because what happens is the more you write, and I know you'll write more books because that you're just gaining more and more confidence in your voice. So if this is your starting point, just say like this, we're going this way, right?
I'm like literally before this book was even second edited, I was like, I want to start writing my new book. I was like, I need to start writing it. And I'm like, Melissa, just whoa there, you need to get this one out. Otherwise you're going to have all these books you need to edit, and that will not be fun. So I'm like,
Casey will be crying. Let's not do that to her.
It keeps coming in. So the new book, I think that once this one's out, I think I'm just going to start it. Like I feel it there, and it's
absolutely. You've turned the creative tap on. There's no stopping you now, kid. I'm telling you.
But also since the book finished, and it's quite chronological, but since the book finished, and I didn't really finish it on the date of where I was at the point, right? I kind of finished the main lessons of what I'd learned, kind of finished just as COVID was kind of hitting. So much has come and developed since then, and even when I was reading it, I was like, well, there's more I know now about this stuff that like I can't keep adding. So that's going to come out in the next one.
And that's when we said, why don't we talk about the future? Why don't we talk about where you want to go rather than where you are? Because I think it was a really nice way to finish the book, because you talk so much about the past, and so let's focus now on what's next, and it does finish in that way. And I think it was really a good idea. I think it finished as well.
You say it was a good idea. I had no idea. Do you remember the conversations?
I remember.
I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to finish the book. I think the book will just finish. And then I was literally sitting there writing. And I was like, and then suddenly I was like, oh, it's finished. It was literally like, I wrote a sentence and I was like, with love, Melissa, kiss. And I was like, oh my God, it's finished. And I hit save. And I messaged you and I was like, Katie, it's finished. Like, I've actually finished. I was as surprised as anyone. And there was no plan, it just finished.
No, absolutely. And then just say we had the conversation, and I was like, why don't we add a little bit at the end, just kind of, because I just felt like it needed a wrap up. And so I think that extra last little chapter, I think it really just brought everything together.
And we did the preface and all that stuff, so it's all good. So I don't want to keep everyone too long, so we have been an hour. Neve asked, at what point in the process do you bring someone else in? We spoke about this, and I recommended it at the beginning because that's where I did, but we're all, it actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. As I say, I've had people who haven't even picked up a laptop or picked up a pen, and literally just have an idea of writing a book but don't know where to start. I've had people that come to me when they've written their first draft and then want to talk to me. It's like, it really is what you feel, where you're at and what you need in that time. And writing is so personable, so you have to kind of trust your own intuition on that.
And I recommend, me, who a year ago had not written a book ever, I recommend it even as a personal, if you're watching this, you're on the spiritual path, because otherwise you probably won't be watching my page. I recommend it as an exercise, even for knowing yourself, and for seeing. What I got the most from this was seeing how all of the threads of my life actually wove in to what was the tapestry that I now know myself. And I know that this is not the end of that. And I think what that gives me, what I received in hindsight, will help me in foresight, that as things come up that aren't easy, or that, you know, you're like, well, why is this going on and happening? Having read and learned about everything that I'd been through on the perspective of energy and, you know, healing and guidance and evolution, I suppose. I don't know, I just think it will help drive me forward, and I hope that that's what it does for the reader.
Absolutely.
Once you've received that. So the book is coming out on Tuesday, fingers crossed. I'm literally going to upload it when I finish this call now. I've uploaded the book. I'm just the cover just needed a few tweaks. So that is going on now. What I have done for anyone who buys the book in the first 24 hours, you've got these really cool bonuses, which we've just sorted. So as soon as you've then bought the book by Wednesday, you'll receive all of the bonuses. They include a meditation, which is all about this tapestry of your life, which I was like, what can I give everyone? And then I was literally got this intuition of just get your mic out and just start talking. And I'm like, where are we going? And I just did that, just like the book. And I recorded this. It's about a 25-minute meditation that my dear friend Laura Mitchell, who's a sound shaman, put all the music behind for. You've got a wallpaper, very cool, which I've encoded with some cool energy and frequencies. And you've not heard this before. I'm inviting you to my Lionsgate workshop, which we're going to record live on Tuesday. And it's probably easier that you get the recording. So I do them every year. It's also my 2-year anniversary of Soul Space, Lionsgate, and the launch of the book. It's going to be a massive day for me. So I thought it'd be really nice just to have all of that energy again encoded in this workshop. So anyone who buys the book can, in the first day or two, can receive that. As soon as it goes live, if you're a launch partner, the link will go in the group. If you want to be a launch partner, I will put the link in here, melissa-amos.com/mystics. And it'll be available on Amazon. I don't know what time, but some point on the 8th of the 8th.
Yep.
Yeah,
it will. It's happening. It's like there's no stopping you now, kids. It's all in process, right? We've surrendered. It's all happening, and it will happen. Yeah,
it's there, it's happening. If you want to get in touch with Katie, I've put her link on the Facebook Live, and I'll put it, if you're watching on YouTube, it will be under there. Give her a follow and listen to her work, and watch this space, because it's all happening.
It's all happening. It's super exciting. And honestly, Melissa, you know, and I genuinely mean this. I'm not just stroking your ego. So proud of you. I know I say that to you all the time on Messenger. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. But genuinely, I am. I do feel like a very proud mom. I know you're not my child, but I feel like I've really just watched you blossom and bloom over this last year. And it's amazing. And I genuinely am very excited to see, you know, how this unfolds and and where you go next. I think literally this is just the start of something beautiful for you, honestly.
Thank you. And thank you for being there and supporting.
Of course. Actually, it's been an honor, genuinely.
Thank you. And everyone who's watched, thank you for sticking around. If you know anyone that would enjoy this, give it a share. And see you all on Tuesday.
Yes, thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.